It's recording.
You can join if you want, but you're gonna take a picture.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's what we did.
I got one already, but
Oh, okay. No, I'm good.
okay. Thanks, Dad. Okay. Well, thank you so much for coming. I really appreciate you guys coming. I do feel like this is it's a really important message for me to share because I've learned a lot, and it's completely changed my life. And I've seen it change other people's lives as well. And so I want to get better at this, and I want to keep sharing, and I want this to become a bigger and bigger thing. So thank you for helping me get started, because it really is important to me, and I know it'll benefit a lot of other people. So the more I can share, the merrier. And I forgot to push that. Okay. So first of all, I wanted to thank Asia for helping me get the house already and getting everything prepared that way. And then also, my topic is about breaking habits. And so if you're here just to support me, then great. But also, I hope that you can walk away with some of the things that I'm sharing, and that they can be impactful in your life, because I know they've been hugely impactful in mine. So what I want to talk about today is there's just a couple things. So the first is, we're talking about breaking habits. So the first thing we want to do is identify habits. Okay, so who here has habits? Okay. Now, who here has good habits? I do. You guys all have good habits too? Mm-hmm. Okay, I want you to vocalize for a second. Yeah. You guys all have good habits?
Yes.
Okay. And then who has habits that they don't want? Habits that they want to change? And let's do a vocalize and a hand raise.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. We all have habits that we want to change, right? So I'm going to talk about what habits are, the physiology of our brain, and how habits work and why they're so hard to break, and then also teach you what I've learned about how to break them. So those are the three things that I want to talk about today. So the first thing before we jump into that, I want to talk about some rules. Now, you're all here, and I appreciate that, but we want to manage our communication devices. That's the first rule. So maybe check your cell phones, maybe turn them on vibrate.
Yeah.
You did? Awesome.
I think I did too. I'm expecting a call.
And the next form of managing your communication device is like elbows. Now you guys aren't sitting together, so you don't have to worry about that as much. But maybe finger pointing, the stuff. I know that it's really easy to notice, other habits that other people have that you would like them to break. So we don't want to point any of those out. We want this to be a fun and safe environment. The next thing I wanted to talk about, or the next rule, is that there's a time and a place for everything. So I'm going to be talking about some things, some really vulnerable things, and oftentimes when I do that, people they feel that vulnerable and that connection or whatever, and they want to share their experiences too. But remember this is a group setting, so we want to keep it that way. We want to keep things really personal things just to ourselves for this, and you can apply the principles that we're learning. Okay, and then the last rule that we've got is play it 100%. We're here to have fun. This is going to be hopefully will be a fun experience, as well as an experience that you learn from. So can everybody agree to those rules, those three rules?
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yes.
awesome.
Gotta leave him alone.
Yeah, no poking Ryan. Telling him he's got things that you want him to change. Okay, so let's talk about the physiology of the brain. So our brain is made up of approximately 100 billion neurons. Okay, now a neuron, it looks kind of like a koosh ball. So
It's not a koosh ball.
whatever this happens to be, you're right. The koosh balls have the little things.
Just clarifying there.
But I have Googled these trying to find these, and there's not.
Anymore.
Yeah, you can't find them, and they don't have like a real name. They got like Hyperflex or something, Hyperflex balls. But anyways, so we're gonna, for all intents and purposes, we're gonna call this a koosh ball because I don't know what the real name is for it. But the important thing is that this is really similar to a neuron. Okay, so our whole, everything that we experience in life is stored in our brain. Okay, so when we have a memory, that memory consists of somewhere between 30,000 and 100,000 different neurons. Okay, and those are located all throughout the brain. So these neurons, they're actually connected to each other. So that's why I like this analogy, or I like using this as a comparison to a neuron. So a neuron has a synapses, or a synapse, and this is what connects one neuron to another neuron. So if I had two of these, I can't find another one. So we've got just the one. But if there was two of them and they were connected, that the connection between them is called a synapse. Okay, now why this is important is that it's a big collection of memories, or a big collection of synapses that make up a memory, or an emotion, or a feeling. All of the experiences that we experience, in our head, and they all come from a collection of these. So I'm just going to I'm going to say one word, and I want everybody just to think of the first word that comes to your mind. Okay, and just hold on to it. So I'm going to say purple. Okay, does everybody have a word? Okay, what was your word?
Red.
Okay.
Favorite.
Favorite.
Grapes.
Grapes.
Lavender.
Lavender.
Cuda.
Cuda. Okay, awesome. So notice that we have all these different things. Okay, I'm going to do it again. Okay, think of another thing when I say this word. Purple.
Red.
What, a different word.
Oh.
And everybody figure out what your word is.
Oh.
We'll start over here as well. Okay. What was yours?
Row.
Row?
Or grapes.
Okay.
My mom.
Well,
Dresses.
dresses. And you said the wreath?
Yeah.
Because it's got some purple on it? Okay. So the point I'm trying to make is that we've got this synapse, and with that one piece of information, that one word, purple, it's connected to a lot of different things. It's connected to if we kept going, we probably would have gotten words like peaceful, or we would have gotten into feelings, and we would have got to what purple feels like, and what purple smells like, and what purple looks like, vibrant or whatever, right? So we've got all these different neurons that are all connected. Now some of those are good, some of those connections are good, and some of those are not good. So for example, when I come home from work and my wife says, "Hey, did you do this?" She asks me a simple question. "Did you do the dishes this morning, or put your dishes away," or whatever it happens to be. I might be like, "Ah," and I might just be so frustrated with her. Whereas if my neighbor had asked me that, I wouldn't be frustrated, right? There's a big difference, right? You guys all relate to that? Okay. Every one of us understands that concept, right? Okay, so what's the difference? Why does that happen?
Your beliefs about each of the people.
Because they're connected. That experience, you can experience that same. We're going to call it a trigger. That same trigger is connected to a different series of neurons because there was another influence on it. Because it was my wife that asked me, I choose to be like, upset about it. But if a neighbor asked me, it would take me along a different path of neurons. And so my experience with that is completely different. So why this is key is because if you understand what a habit is and why they're so hard to break, and how a habit is actually formed, then we can understand how to manipulate it so that it can go away, so that we can break that. Okay, so let me make sure I've got everything in. Okay, so let's talk about why they're so hard to break. So have you guys all said that you have habits that you want to break, right? That you don't want to have anymore. So why don't you want to have them anymore?
The outcome isn't positive.
Absolutely. Okay, because they hurt, because they're painful, they're costly in either time or effort, or your relationships are hurt by them. I was like, what was that?
Our health.
Our health. Yeah, these habits have really bad negative effects. But now, if they have bad negative effects, why don't we just stop?
There's something else that's holding it.
Because it's not easy, right? It's not easy to do. Have we all tried to stop a habit?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah? Okay. How many of us have tried to stop more than once? And how many of us have failed? Okay. So I want to explain why they're so hard. Okay, because everything, like I said earlier, everything happens in these neurons. So the thing about habits is the more powerful the emotion or the feeling or the experience is, that when we experience things and they're stored on these neurons, the easier it is for our brain to go that way. So when we have two different neurons that are connected, like right here, so let's actually say that you are a neuron here. Okay, so he's an experience or a thought or an emotion, so go ahead and hold on to that. And Asia is an experience and a thought and emotion. Now, when I have a trigger, and a trigger, just like a gun, is something that's manipulated or touched that then results in something bigger happening, right? Like a gun, if you pull the trigger, that causes a chain reaction that shoots the bullet out of the gun, right? So this trigger has two different ways that it can go. So let's say that Ryan's is more positive and Asia's is more negative. So the more powerful the experience, the thicker the connection. And because that connection is thicker, that's why we go. It's just like water or electricity, that it follows the path of least resistance, right? So the thicker that connection gets, the harder it is to choose this path. Okay, does that kind of make sense to everybody?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. So with breaking habits, we can get really bad habits, and they're addictions. Addictions are just about the worst habit that you can have. I have experience with an addiction. I've struggled with it since I was 7 years old, and it was an addiction to pornography. And for the last 7 years, I've been struggling, really fighting to try and figure out how to stop. And it wasn't easy. And I'll tell you why. Because that has a really thick connection. And so every time that I experience something, it's very thick. And so by comparison to this, if my brain, I see a trigger, am I going to go, okay, I'm going to go turn off the computer or whatever, or am I going to go down this really intense experience? Am I going to go down that pathway? I'm going to go down that pathway, right? It's really, really hard to decide, okay, I'm going to change. So I want to just kind of diagram this a little bit. So there's a few different ways that, as I went to counseling and stuff, that they tried to teach me to help me, no longer be an addict, right? So what they said is, okay, well, so let's say that this blue connection is the connection of the addiction. Okay, so that's a real thick connection. What they said is, okay, what we're going to do is we're going to replace things with more positive things. So get involved in extracurricular activities. Okay, so we're going to have Rolene be extracurricular activities. And Rob, let's have you be just choosing to do something else. Finding other, what are some other examples? What other things have...
Physical activity.
Physical activity, right?
Prayer.
So different things. Yeah, prayer. Other options, right?
Go for a bike ride.
Mm-hmm.
Or run.
Yeah, and so, but can you see that this connection is still the thickest? It's still the easiest, the most natural to go down that road. And so what I found is that every time, or every single day, I found these triggers, and they were everything, just random things. You know, what if I saw a blurry image, it was a trigger. If I saw, even if it was like a blurred out license plate on Google Maps, you know, that was triggering to me. And I found all these things that triggered me down to this path, and I had to choose every single time not to go down that road. Now, it did get easier. It got easier, but it wasn't a solution. Every day I still had to choose, am I going to go down that path or one of these other paths? And I had to try and build up other connections so they are still thicker. So now let's say, can I steal this one from you? Let's say that I did build up this exercising or extracurricular activities or whatever. Now that's a thicker pathway, right? It's going to be easier to go down that, but I still have to make a choice every single time. And it was horrible. So I want to tell you real quickly about an experience I had. So when I first started to address the problem that I had, I went to different counseling and different therapists, and I went to one that was, he's a really good guy, really good guy. He actually helped to write the addiction recovery program for the church. He was a mission president, just a great guy. And I remember talking to him, and it was probably on like our third or fourth visit, and he said to me, I told him, yeah, I slipped up again, but that's the last time. And he said, Josh, I want you to be aware of something. Based on what I've seen, this isn't going to go away for you. This is going to be something that you're going to have to fight every single day. It's not going to just go away. And I remember sitting in that chair and thinking, oh my hell, this experience that I have, this choice that I have to make every single day is going to last every day for the rest of my entire life. This is horrible. I can't tell you how much weight I felt on my shoulders that day. It was a horrible experience. It was very eye-opening, and I realized, okay, and it was good at the time. It was good because I realized I really need to put some effort into this. I need to nip this thing in the bud. But every single day since then, I've still had to make that choice until I learned some really, really valuable things. So now let's take this back and relate this to, because addiction is like the worst case scenario, right? What about the little habits? You might be asking yourself, okay, well, does this apply, or is what he's going to tell me apply to what I'm doing? And I'm going to say yes, because it's all the same neurons. It's the same pathways. It's the same. It functions exactly the same. It's just done on a bigger scale. So these same principles that I'm going to teach you will work for anything. Really, really little things, really simple things. So who's interested in hearing about what my solutions are? Okay. Woohoo!
Yeah, we are.
Okay.
That's why we're here.
Awesome. Okay, so we've talked about the different approaches that therapists gave me. They gave me, redirecting, or replacing, or making other pathways thicker, but it never addressed the real problem that I had a pathway to those negative things.
So you're saying just cut the pathway altogether?
Just cut the pathway altogether. Break the habit. So what I figured out, I started learning. She is. She's very smart. So what I figured out was that as good as that man was, and as good as the education that he had, because he'd been studying this for a long time, he didn't understand this one concept, and it is that the brain is extremely powerful. So I want to tell you about some different. Before I tell you exactly how I do it, I want to tell you about how powerful the brain really is. So have any of you guys ever heard of, okay, thank you. Have you guys ever heard of, I don't know what the technical name of it is called, but of a person that's been like in a car accident and wakes up speaking another language? You ever heard of that?
Mm-mm.
It's like a fairly common thing. I ran into a guy at Walmart, and he said, "Yeah, I got in a wreck on my mission, and I woke up speaking Portuguese." And my mission president was like, "Well, where did you learn to talk like that?" And he said, "I don't know." He says, "Do I sound different?" He says, "You don't sound like you did before that accident, 2 weeks ago," because he just barely been out on his mission. But he couldn't remember English. So something had happened in his brain, and because of the trauma of that accident, his brain was able to rewire all of his communication to go through the Portuguese synapses and neurons or whatever.
Is that where he was serving?
That's where he was serving. But it's actually a fairly common thing. And in some people, like it would, and another example would be if I got hit by a car. I've never been to France. I don't speak French. I probably watched a movie in French with the subtitles or something. But if I just woke up speaking French, that's how powerful the brain really is. Because you've heard French spoken or whatever. I don't know how that works, but the point is that the brain is extremely powerful. And so what I'm going to teach you now is how to use your brain, your subconscious, to break that connection. Okay, now the critical thing about these habits. So does everybody have a habit that they think that they would like to change? Yeah, does everybody have one in their mind? And take a second and think about one that causes pain to you or to your family, something that would improve your life if you were to get rid of. Does everybody have one? You got one, Rolly?
Kinda.
Kinda? Okay. What about you, Rob? You got one? Okay. You got one, babe? Okay. Ryan, you got one too? Okay. So, the cool thing about what I learned is that I can break the connections. Now, the key thing is what connections am I going to break? Because they're going all over my brain. So the key to breaking the connections is understanding where the trigger is. Okay, so if I want to break a connection or an addiction to pornography, there's a lot of things that trigger me. For example, that seeing a blurry license plate was a trigger to me. So what I do is I found that trigger one day while working, completely legitimate. I had to drill into Google Maps and see a location, see if it was a retail location or not. And I saw the license plate, and it kind of started, my heart started pounding, and it was just kind of a little bit of an intense moment. I had a trigger. So what I realized is that trigger is connected to all the negative things. That gives me a focal point, a point that I can start breaking connections. Now how I do that is I visualize this trigger, just like this koosh ball. I visualize that, and I visualize all the negative connections that it has. And I don't even have to know what they are. I don't even have to know where they go. I just visualize those connections going out through my brain. Because my brain is extremely powerful, and it doesn't know what my neurons look like. So I just provide it with some kind of visual that then I break those connections. Whether I wipe them away. When I first started, I would picture a laser. I had all these connections going out, and I picture a laser just frying those connections. And what I found was something as simple as that was that I was working the next day, and I saw those things, and it was no longer triggering to me. Just like that. It's that powerful. Now, I don't know if my brain is actually figuring out how to sever those connections, or if it just says, oh, okay, well, he says they're broken, they must be broken. I don't know how it works. I just know that it does. Because something that's that intense, those thick connections are no longer there for me. And every time I feel that, I feel that trigger, it's an opportunity for me to break those connections. And I can just visualize that. And I'm getting better and better at it.
So every time you visualize shooting lasers, just breaking those connections by shooting.
Yep, and other people that I've coached and talked to, they've done different ways. Some of them they've applied ointment to it that heals those negative connections and kind of pulls them back. Now I just kind of wipe it away, almost like wiping away. I kind of picture like these colored lines like in water almost, and I just kind of wipe them away, just like it was a mist. And I just wipe them away. And it completely changes everything for me. Now, scientists have been able to do the same thing with drugs. They've been able to take people that are terrified of spiders, they bring them into a room with a tarantula, tell them to get as close as they can, because they're bringing up that trigger, and then once their heart's beating and everything, then they give them a drug that stops memories from being formed, from being taken back to the places that they were stored at. And those people, the next day, they come in and they can touch the spider, they get a little more comfortable, and they're like, this is so weird. This is like touching a hamster. I know I should be scared, but I'm not. So they do that same thing with drugs, but I've learned how to just do it just by using the power of my brain. And I've got a Nova video that is awesome. It's phenomenal. It talks a lot about, it's called Memory Hackers, and I can let you guys borrow that if you'd like, because it explains so much of this. Now what I want to do now is I want to offer to you all tonight. Well, so first of all, who's going to try this?
So, let me see if I understand.
Okay.
So it's a matter of visualizing when you can recognize the habit. It's a matter of visualizing and changing that connection or that trigger point.
Yeah, so you bring up a good point. Let's break it down into 3 steps. Okay, first of all, you have to have a habit figured out. You have to have something that you want to change, right? Because you're going to be triggered about a lot of different things, but unless you've got a predetermined habit that you can recognize when you're triggered for that one habit, so that's the key. The first step is recognize. So let's all say that. What's the first step? Recognize your habit, right? Second step is to identify a trigger. Wait till that comes, right? Because that same drug that they give to the patients that are afraid of spiders, if they just give that to them, it's actually like a heart. It's some kind of heart drug that happens to have a side effect of clogging your brain from making memories, right? Now, people are taking that all the time, and they're not just forgetting all of their traumas, right? It's that key of bringing the trigger up, or identifying the trigger, pulling it up, front of mind, and then they block that. So that's the second step, is identifying that trigger.
So is the spider stuff in that Noah video?
Yeah.
I've seen the spider video.
Yeah, the memory hackers.
I don't remember where I saw it, but I've seen that.
Mm-hmm. It's on
spiders, and there's another phobia that they dealt with people.
Then it might be another show even, because this one just focused just on spiders. When they were teaching this one principle that I'm kind of sharing with you guys. So first step is to recognize, okay, and then
Identify, then recognize.
yeah. So we have to, regardless of what the steps are, this first step is to have a habit figured out, right? Second step is to identify a trigger. Okay, when it comes up, for me, one of my earliest times of doing this was me and my wife used to watch So You Think You Can Dance. And there's all sorts of triggering things. And I was like, when I first figured this out, I was like, yeah, here we go. And I was breaking triggers, and now it's a completely different experience. It's no longer a triggering thing, which actually kind of brought some of its own challenges, because no longer am I as vulnerable to the effects of things that I've seen. And so that was we found out real quick that was triggering to Asia, because she's like, why are you turning away? And because it was just a different experience for me, right? I was no longer that same person. Okay, so I'm getting off topic, sorry. So once we have the habit figured out, we identify that trigger, then we visualize it, we wipe it away, shoot it, zap it. What are you going to do? How are you going to break that trigger?
I don't know.
Okay, think about it for a second.
I like the soothing ointment. I also like the gentle brush of the water, and you disrupt that. I like both of those ideas.
Okay, what are you going to do?
Scissors.
Scissors, okay. What about you, Lynn?
I like the laser idea.
Okay,
I like scissors.
okay, awesome.
Scissors work, yeah. If you're visualizing this kind of thing coming in and severing.
Mm-hmm. Another one that I've done is I've visualized that connection getting hard, and and like brittle, like stone, and then I just like break it. Yeah, kind of like they do in the movies when things turn to stone and they hit them and it falls apart. Whatever you can do to make that feel real to your brain works. Okay, so what are you gonna do now, Rob? Have you thought of
Go
something?
get some dikes out.
Awesome.
Wire cutters.
Awesome. Okay. So I want to challenge each of you to try and find that and try it out. And you'll be surprised. I know it may sound corny or hokey, but I'll tell you what, there's been a huge difference in my life. Absolute difference. From going to that every single day, choosing. So I'm going to take this one right here. Go like this. Can you hold on to those three there? And you take one there. And you take one. Okay. So from going from trying to choose one of these three options and this.
And let go.
And every single day, white knuckling. I tell you what, that was every day I lived in fear. Is today going to be the day I mess up again? Is today going to be that day that I won't be able to participate in a blessing or anything like that? That took so much of my thought process every single day. It was life-changing breaking that because now it's not there. I don't have to choose. I chose when I wiped that connection away. And now I can actually say I'm no longer an addict. I no longer have to choose every day, am I going to be an addict or am I not? All I do is identify triggers and wipe them away. And it's changed everything for me. Absolutely everything. So Asia and I probably spent thousands and thousands of dollars going to different therapy groups and different therapists. Easily $5,000 to $10,000. Not to mention all the costs that it cost me, the opportunities that I missed out because my life just stopped. I was at a standstill for years. So I would have paid, if I had somebody to teach me, I would have paid a ton of money to just be able to figure this out. But what I'm actually wanting to do is I'm going to offer to you here tonight, offer coaching. If you've got something that you really want to kick, and you think that having a coach, somebody that's gone through something really powerful, like addiction, and has applied this to something as powerful as addiction, having my experience will make things so much easier for you. Because this isn't the only tool that I've used, that I've learned. I've learned other tools, how to filter things out, so that I don't even see them. I no longer even see the things that used to be triggering to me. So not only am I wiping the triggers away, but I'm also turning them off, because our brain doesn't have to see everything that's in front of us. So I've got a lot of different things that I've learned, and I want to share those with as many people as I can. So what I'm offering to you tonight, if any of you are interested and you think that it's worth your money, I want to do 5 different coaching sessions, half-hour coaching sessions over the next 5 weeks, and I want to just charge $60 for those. So if you are interested, come see me afterwards, and we'll take care of you, and we'll get some time set up. But if not, are there any questions that you guys have?
I have a question. So, there are certain times when you identify a trigger and you use that technique, and the next day the thing happens and you're at peace, and the day following it happens and you get triggered again. Has that happened with you?
No, I haven't. I haven't experienced that. And if you do experience that, you might want to wipe that connection more. You need to do a better job of getting that cleared out. Because I have gotten better, I'll tell you that. I have gotten better at wiping those connections. And now it doesn't take me as long to do. But I could definitely see how if you don't do it thoroughly, it won't be a benefit to you.
In your process of breaking blurred image, you were prayerful, like how many connections are there? And you broke 50. So you could have more connections than you think, what are you saying?
Yes,
And you realize
absolutely.
you need to keep breaking them because you haven't broken them all.
Yeah. So it's really about how thorough, because there are tons of connections, right? There's, every single neuron is probably connected to 1,000 different other things, right? So it's just how thoroughly you do that and how well you exercise that, because it's like a muscle. That's what I'm learning is that the more exercise I give it, the better the results are. Now, if you're wondering, is this really going to work for me with my little habit? I'll tell you it is. I came up with a list of 17 or 18 things that this works for. Okay, now we talked about habits, obviously, addictions, reactions to spouses, reactions to coworkers. If there's a coworker you can't stand, this will help you with them.
You just have to be careful if you're cutting with scissors.
Uh-huh.
About your coworker.
Intimacy, if you've had trauma with intimacy, any other form of trauma that you've experienced, post-traumatic stress disorder, those are some of the things that they're treating with that process that I was telling you about with the drugs and the spiders. They're treating that, and it works the same with me, or with the things that I've shared with you tonight. Your relationships with money, feeling constant guilt, insecurities, vulnerabilities, your self-image, fears, phobias, depression, anxiety, triggering voices. If there's somebody that you can't stand their voice, or it's been tied to negative things. Food. You have a bad habit with eating food, or anything else that easily provokes you. This still applies because it's the same concept, just on a smaller scale. Okay, so are there any other questions?
What about alcoholism?
Yeah, so that is actually a really good question, because so many of the triggers, there's going to be some additional things in that, right? Because alcoholism actually has a physical addiction, right?
Uh-huh.
And so you're still going to have to deal with that. But as far as the triggering, that's like 85% of an addiction is being triggered and choosing not to, right? That's the biggest part of it. Because if you take an addict, somebody, take them into rehab, right? They'll rehabilitate them, but they still go back to it, right? Because of the mental thing, right? They get over that physical
Aspect.
the physical aspect.
The mental connection is still there.
Right, exactly. So, but then there's still other things that you can do with, I haven't tried it with anybody yet, but I think with alcoholism, I think that the physical aspects, I think that there's still things that they could do with their brain to break those connections that tie the physical aspects, maybe so they don't feel them as fully. So I'm actually really excited to try that with an alcoholic and coach them, because I think it'll be really beneficial. Well, if there's no other questions, thank you so much for coming. I really appreciate it. And let's give ourselves a round of applause for being here and breaking habits. Okay. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate you guys coming.